I still remember the day she left me as if it happened yesterday. My name's Michael, and for a long time I believed in the kind of love that could withstand anything: poverty, struggle, long nights of ramen noodles and overdue rent. I thought Sarah believed in it too. She was my wife, the woman I promised to love forever. But forever came crashing down the moment she decided money mattered more than love. We met in our early 20s, when both of us were broke dreamers. I was working odd jobs, doing construction during the day and bartending at night, trying to scrape together enough money to one day start my own contracting business. Sarah was in nursing school, bright-eyed, beautiful, with a smile that could stop traffic. We met at a coffee shop downtown. She ordered an iced latte, dropped her books on the floor, and I bent down to help her. Our eyes met, and it was like something out of a movie. That moment, it felt like fate. We dated for 3 years before getting married. The wedding was small, nothing fancy, just family and a few friends, with paper lanterns hanging. In my mom's backyard. She wore a simple dress, and I wore a suit I bought secondhand. We laughed, we danced barefoot in the grass, and when we said our vows, I really believed we could get through anything. And for a while we did. Life wasn't easy, but it was ours. We lived in a small one-bedroom apartment with creaky floors and a drafty window. We shared cheap bottles of wine on Friday nights and dreamed about the house we'd own one day. I promised her I'd work as hard as I had to, that I'd give her the life she deserved. She always smiled and said, "I don't care about money, Michael, I just care about you." But as time went on, I realized those words didn't hold the weight I thought they did. Bills piled up. My construction jobs paid, but never enough to get us ahead. Sometimes we had to choose between rent and groceries. Sarah started looking at me differently, like she was carrying more than her share. She worked extra shifts at the hospital, and the exhaustion showed in her eyes. I tried to fix it, tried to reassure her that things would get better. But the truth was, I was drowning, and she was slipping away from me. One night I came home late from a job. My boots were muddy, my hands blistered, and I was bone-tired. Sarah was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a stack of unpaid bills. Her face was pale, her eyes red. I dropped my bag and kissed her cheek, but she didn't look at me. Instead, she whispered, "Michael, I can't do this anymore." My chest tightened. "Can't do what?" "This," she said, waving at the bills, the empty fridge, the tiny apartment. "Living like this, struggling every single day. I love you, but love isn't enough. I need stability. I need security. I need more than this life." I felt the world collapse under my feet. "Sarah, we'll get there. I'm working on it. Just give me more time." She shook her head. "I've given you years, Michael. I'm done waiting." And just like that, she packed her bags. No fight, no screaming, no tears. Just cold, simple finality. She walked out the door and left me standing there, surrounded by the remnants of a life I thought we were building together. For months, I was broken. I'd wake up reaching for her side of the bed, only to find it empty. I'd walk past the coffee shop where we met and feel my stomach twist. I stopped answering calls from friends. My world shrank to work and silence. But somewhere in that darkness, a spark lit inside me, a stubborn, angry determination. If she thought I was poor, if she thought I'd never amount to anything, then I'd prove her wrong. Not for her, not anymore, but for me. I threw myself into work. Every hour of the day was dedicated to building something bigger. I stopped bartending and took on more construction jobs, saving every dime I could. I studied business at night, watching videos, reading books, teaching myself how to run a company. Within 2 years, I started my own contracting business. It was small at first, just me and a couple of guys with rusty trucks. But word spread. We worked hard, treated clients right, and slowly, jobs started pouring in. By the 5th year, my business had grown beyond what I imagined. We were building houses, renovating offices, landing contracts with companies I used to only dream about. I bought my first house, a modest place, nothing extravagant, but mine. I stood in the living room with the keys in my hand, remembering the night Sarah and I dreamed about this, and I thought, I did it. Without her, I did it. But success didn't stop there. I expanded, hired more crews, invested wisely. 10 years after Sarah left me, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. I had multiple crews working under me. I owned several properties, and for the first time in my life, I felt whole. Not because of the money, but because I'd built something out of the ashes of my heartbreak. And then, one afternoon, I got an envelope in the mail. It was thick, expensive paper with gold-embossed lettering. I opened it, and my heart nearly stopped. It was a wedding invitation, Sarah's wedding. She was marrying some man named David, a banker from uptown. The invitation was formal, flashy, filled with cursive writing and details about a lavish venue. For a moment, I laughed bitterly. The irony was almost too much to bear. She had left me because I was poor, and now she was marrying a man with money. It was everything she said she needed. But what made my stomach twist wasn't the fact that she was getting married. It was that she had invited me. Why? Why would she want me there? To rub it in my face? To show me what I had lost? Or maybe she thought I was still the broken man she left behind, still struggling, still drowning in bills. Maybe she wanted me to see what she considered an upgrade. I almost threw the invitation away. Almost. But then something inside me stirred. A fire. I realized this wasn't just an invitation. It was an opportunity, not for revenge, in the way people think of it, not violence, not cruelty, but to show her what I had become, to let her see with her own eyes the man she had abandoned, not broken, not poor, not defeated, but successful, strong, unstoppable. The weeks leading up to the wedding I prepared. I bought a tailored suit, sharp enough to cut through glass. I polished my car until it gleamed. I even hired a stylist, something I never thought I'd do, just to make sure I walked into that venue not as the man Sarah once pitied, but as the man she could never have again. The day of the Jewish wedding arrived. The venue was stunning, an old cathedral, decorated with white roses and golden ribbons. Guests milled about in designer clothes, sipping champagne, laughing as if their lives were perfect. I walked in alone, my head held high, and immediately felt eyes on me. People whispered, glancing my way. Some recognized me from the past, others just sensed there was something different about me. And then I saw her, Sarah, dressed in white, her hair pinned elegantly, a diamond necklace around her neck. She was beautiful, I won't lie. But when our eyes met, I saw something flicker in her gaze. Shock. Maybe even regret. She wasn't looking at the poor man she had left a decade ago. She was looking at the man I had become. She approached me during the reception, her smile forced. "Michael, you came." I nodded. "Of course. You invited me." She hesitated, her eyes scanning my suit, my watch, the way I carried myself. "You look different." I chuckled softly. Yeah, life has a way of changing people. Her fiancé David walked up then, shaking my hand with a firm grip. "So you're Michael. Sarah's told me about you." His smile was polite, but there was something smug behind his eyes. I just smiled back. "I'm sure she has." The night went on, music playing, glasses clinking, laughter echoing through the hall. But every time I caught Sarah's eye, She looked away quickly, like she couldn't quite face me. Like maybe, just maybe, she realized what she had thrown away. At one point, as the guests gathered around the dance floor, I stepped outside for some air. Sarah followed me. She stood there in her wedding gown, the city lights reflecting in her eyes, and whispered, "You've really changed." I looked at her, the woman who had once been my whole world, and I said, "No, Sarah, I didn't change. I just finally became the man I was always meant to be. You just didn't have the patience to wait." Her lips trembled, but she said nothing. We stood there in silence, the distance between us heavier than ever. And in that moment, I realized my revenge wasn't about hurting her. It was about letting her see that I didn't need her, that I never needed her, that her leaving me was the best thing that ever happened. Because sometimes, the greatest revenge isn't anger, it's success. When I walked back into that cathedral after stepping outside with Sarah, I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't the same man who had once begged her to stay, who had once believed my worth was tied to how much money I could bring home. No, I was someone entirely different now, and for the first time in years, I wasn't haunted by her absence. I was free. The reception carried on with the usual chaos. Champagne toasts, laughter, music that thumped against the high ceilings. I sat at my table, watching people I hadn't seen in years dance under golden chandeliers. Some of Sarah's old friends recognized me and whispered in hushed tones. They probably remembered me as the guy who never had enough, the man Sarah pitied. But now, when their eyes darted to the tailored suit hugging my shoulders or the watch gleaming on my wrist, I could see the confusion in their faces. They didn't recognize this version of me. And maybe Sarah didn't either. When the newlyweds had their first dance, I stayed seated. I didn't clap, didn't cheer. I just watched. Sarah's smile was perfect, her steps graceful, but her eyes kept searching the crowd. And more than once, they landed on me. After the dance, her maid of honor, a woman named Emily, who I vaguely remembered from years back, slid into the chair beside me. She gave me a long look before saying, "I'll be honest, Michael. When I saw your name on the guest list, I thought it was a mistake. But now, seeing you here, I think Sarah invited you for a reason." I raised a brow. "And what reason is that?" Emily smirked knowingly. "Closure, or maybe curiosity. Maybe she wanted to see if you were still stuck where she left you. But you're not even close. And judging by the look on her face, she wasn't prepared for that." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Emily was right. Later that evening, I was called to give a toast. At first, I thought it was some kind of cruel joke, but when the microphone was handed to me, I realized everyone in that room expected me to speak. Maybe they thought I'd stumble, that I'd make a fool of myself. But instead, I stood tall, raised my glass, and let the words flow. "I've known Sarah for a long time," I began, my voice steady. "Long enough to know that she has always dreamed big. She wanted a life full of promise, of security, of beauty, and tonight, she's found that. She's found someone to give her those things. David, I wish you both happiness, and I truly mean that. But let me also say this. Sometimes life takes us down roads we don't expect. Sometimes the person who leaves us is the very person who teaches us to stand on our own 2 feet. So, here's to lessons, to growth, and to finding strength in places we never thought possible." The room went silent for a moment, then erupted into polite applause. But as I sat back down, I noticed Sarah's hands trembling against her glass. Her smile looked frozen, her eyes glistening as if my words had cut deeper than she expected. And in that moment, I realized my revenge was complete. I didn't have to humiliate her. I didn't have to expose her choices. Simply standing there, alive, successful, and stronger than I'd ever been. That was enough. But the story didn't end there. After the wedding, weeks passed. I went back to my life, back to running my business, traveling, living without the weight of Sarah on my shoulders. I thought I'd never hear from her again. But then, one evening, as I was reviewing blueprints in my office, my phone buzzed. It was a number I didn't recognize. I answered, and a familiar voice whispered, "Michael, it's me. Sarah." My chest tightened, but I stayed calm. "What do you want, Sarah?" There was a pause, a shaky breath. I need to see you. Please, just one conversation." Every instinct in me screamed to hang up, to let the past stay buried. But curiosity, that damn stubborn curiosity, got the better of me. We agreed to meet at a small cafe downtown, the same one where we had first crossed paths all those years ago. When I walked in, she was already there, sitting at a corner table with a cup of coffee untouched in front of her. She looked different, tired, worn, like the sparkle that once defined her had dulled. "Michael," she said softly, her eyes scanning me up and down. "You look incredible, successful, happy." I sat down, folding my hands on the table. "And you? How's married life treating you?" Her smile faltered. "It's fine." She hesitated before adding, "But it's not what I thought it would be." I leaned back, watching her squirm. "You thought marrying a man with money would fix everything, didn't you?" Tears welled in her eyes. "I thought I needed security. I thought I needed comfort. But Michael, I didn't realize what I was giving up. I didn't realize until I saw you at the wedding." I laughed bitterly. "So what is this? Regret? Do you want me to say I still love you? That I'd take you back?" Her lips trembled. "I don't know what I want. I just know I miss you. I miss us. I miss the way you looked at me, even when we had nothing." For a moment, I felt a pang of the old love we once shared. The memory of those nights in our tiny apartment, laughing over burnt pasta and cheap wine. But that love had been poisoned the moment she walked out the door. I shook my head. "Sarah, you made your choice. You left me when I was down, when I had nothing. And now, you see me standing tall, and suddenly you miss what we had. That's not love. That's regret." Tears streamed down her face, but I didn't waver. "Michael, please." "No, Sarah," I interrupted. "You don't get to walk back into my life and rewrite the story. You had your chance. You gave up on me. And now, I've moved on." I stood up, tossing a few bills on the table for her untouched coffee. As I walked out of that cafe, I felt lighter than I ever had before. For years, I carried the weight of her betrayal, the sting of her abandonment. But now, seeing her sitting there full of regret, I realized I no longer needed her validation. I had built a life worth living, without her. And that, more than any words I could have said, was my final revenge. Years later, when people ask me about my past, I tell them this: heartbreak can destroy you, or it can forge you into something stronger. Sarah leaving me was the worst pain I'd ever felt. But it was also the fire that lit my path. Without that pain, I might never have pushed myself, never built the life I have now. So, do I hate her? No. I don't hate Sarah. I thank her. Because sometimes the people who break us are the very ones who push us to rebuild ourselves into something greater. And if she ever looks at me now and wonders what could have been, I hope she realizes the truth. She didn't just lose me because I was poor. She lost me because she couldn't see the man I was becoming, and that's a mistake she'll carry forever. As for me, I'm free, and I've never looked back.